Good evening. Welcome to the first event in our Latino Latin American Studies event. My name is Corey Schaus. I direct the Latino Latin American Studies program. I want to remind you that our next event, before I do the intro, is February 17th at 7 p.m. And if you're interested in getting a 1 credit for attending all 3 of our events after the talk tonight, let me know. You go to all 3 and you're probably getting some points for going to other faculty's classes already, so why not get an extra credit towards graduation? I need to start with the land acknowledgement. Both the College of St. Benedict and St. John's University occupy the original homelands of the Dakota and Anishinaabe peoples. We honor, respect, and acknowledge the indigenous peoples displaced from this territory whose connection remains today. St. Benedict's Monastery and St. John's Abbey previously operated boarding schools that forcibly assimilated Native children. Now, students, faculty, and staff are working to repair relationships with our Native nation's neighbors. So I want to welcome you to the first event in our series for this semester. The title of the event is Si se puede, which is a line from Dolores Huerta, which means yes, we can, creative response to challenging times. On just about every front imaginable, gendered, economic, environmental, national, political, we're in a hot mess, planet-wise, local-wise, but what can we do? How can we respond? What are some creative ways to provide a sustainable future, make a survivable world? And this is particularly true for folks in Minnesota right now, right? The killings of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, they lie outside of what most people consider good law enforcement. In the same way, the dynamics within the state, within our society, they fall outside of the parameters of what folks understand as healthy getting along as a community, right? And while we all coexist in the same time and space, we all certainly aren't having the same reality, right? For the people, for our brothers and sisters in communities of color, in the Hispanic community, for immigrants, documented and otherwise, their experiences probably very, very different from those of you who are outside of those groups. The good news is we can find a way forward, and we kind of have to. And there are lots of options. There are lots of choices. There are lots of actions that you can take, that we can take, things we can do that fit within the parameters of what is legal, what is just, and what makes for a healthy, survivable society. As individuals and in community, it is up to us to find a way forward. And for me, speaking only for me, Corey Clay Schaus, resident of planet Earth, state Minnesota, this means avoid doing things that I know I shouldn't do, what the Catholics among you might call sins of commission, as well as doing the things that I know are right instead of ignoring them, what you might call sins of omission. The choices we have might be individual, but the consequences touch us all. I am most certain that tonight's speaker will help us find ways to reframe our thinking about ways forward, both personal and collective. Reginaldo Haslett-Marroquin is the founder of Regenerative Agriculture Alliance and is the author of his autobiography, In the Shadow of Green Man, My Journey from Poverty and Hunger to Food Security and Hope. He is sometimes referred to lovingly as the chicken revolutionary, leading the movement for developing innovative poultry-centered regenerative agriculture systems around the world. His work at Salvatierra Farms focuses on the development of multi-level strategies for building triple bottom-line regenerative food and agricultural systems. And I stole that from your bio. I have no idea what triple bottom line regenerative food, you're going to tell us, I'm hoping, right? He currently oversees system implementation in the United States, Mexico, Guatemala, and Colombia. He also holds degrees from the Central National School of Agriculture, La Universidad de San Carlos in Guatemala, and Augsburg College in Minneapolis. We won't hold that against you for going to Augsburg. Please join me in welcoming our guest, Reginaldo Haslett-Marroquin.
All right. Your guys with the sound system, I hope they can if they need to adjust it, this would be a good time. All good? All right. So thank you. It's great to be here, and I hope you are ready for a non-conventional call to action. And I say non-conventional because this is the ancestral way of doing things as opposed to the rush that we get into these days and wanting to do something, feeling frustrated, not finding a way, and then not knowing what to do at the end, and then feeling like what we do doesn't really matter because it doesn't change anything, and all of those things that go through our daily lives today. Somehow, we don't have to go through that. And we're going to go through a little process that allows you to center your mind, your body, and spirit so that we can actually inoculate ourselves, vaccinate, if you want to say, against some of those frustrations and be more effective as to how we promote and do actual systems change. So for me, it has been, since I was a child, critical to have centering rituals, ceremonies, and thought processes. This is not about religions. This is simply about our mind, our body, and our spirit, and the way they operate, and to be able to optimize those three levels so that we can be the best expression of who we are. And so in that context, I would invite you to come forward and take a small amount of this sage, which is ceremonial of the Lakota people, of the Western tribes, and hold it. Squeeze it into a little bowl. Pass it around, and I'll wait until it has gone around. And meanwhile, we're just going to continue meditating. We called you here today not for a lecture and not for some sort of enlightening explanation of the world and what's wrong and all of those things. We're simply here called to meditate. And that meditation, at the end of it, gives us most of what we actually need in order to answer most of the pressing questions that we are facing today. That is ancient. If you look at the monks' walk, all they are doing is meditating and shaking the world, in fact, just by walking and meditating. There is something powerful about that. This is not going to give you the whole process, but at least a small ceremony. Sage has a ancient, well-established characteristic or effect that, similar to sitting and meditating, it levels the brain waves and allows us to sink in a way that allows us to have the very difficult conversations with a level of understanding that is very hard when we are all preparing to respond and irritated or any of those reactions that causes us to block and to become less capable of processing. So sage has that effect. But also the centering of the mind. You got some already. So to begin with, this is borrowed for me. I will do a little meditation for you so that you get this same sense that I live by. And in a way, if you can close your eyes if you want to, you can stay fully awake. Just remember the eyes have a way of distracting us. I am but an expression of the energy of the universe. I am energy at the end of the day, light, in fact. When all the molecules in my body are broken into their components, what is left is light. I am made of the elements of the earth. I am carbon, oxygen, mostly water. As a result of that, I came from the earth. The earth, in its evolutionary process, gave origin to life, reorganized elements, toxic and otherwise, put the toxins away so that we could begin to exist as life. Our ancestors, the fungi, the prokaryotes, the trees, the dinosaurs, our ancestors had the same energy that we have today. It cannot be created nor destroyed. It can only be transformed. And as it transformed, it gave origin to life. My roots are as far back as the life on the planet itself. I am indigenous to the earth, just like every other creature that exists on this planet, whether it's a cricket, a white person, a black person, or a brown person, or any expression of life is indigenous by its own origin to the earth. We're made of her elements, we belong to her. As we do that, we are also born colonizers. We are born creatures, ready to survive, to fight for reproductive rights and for moving in and populating and expanding and taking over. The result of who ultimately are is the balance between those two forces within us. I am indigenous, and I was born to live in harmony with all other living things on the planet. And I was also born to seek domination so that I may survive, even if sometimes at the cost of others. Both of those forces are within. I am an expression of the planet, and the planet has those challenges as well. The balance of that energy is what gives us the full power and the full expression of that geoevolutionary process that gave us birth and that has us here. I am not an individual. I am an expression of that energy. I am an ecosystem, a mirror of the planet itself. I am also 70% or so water, just like the planet. I am also made on the same ratios, and all of these things that I call myself are really, truly the combination of bacteria, viruses, all kinds of organisms that are at the end of the day an ecosystem. I am an ecosystem. And that gives me my true identity. I am indigenous to the earth. I occupy this body as a loan to me. What may be done to this body cannot be done to me. It's on loan. It can't be hurt beyond the ways the earth itself can be hurt. I can escape it if I need to. I have only responsibility for the things I do. Everything is done to me or to others is someone else's responsibility. I am only responsible for how I respond and for what I do. And what I choose to do changes everything. And as I choose to do something and invite others and join others, that expression is invincible because it responds to no laws of men or humans. It responds only to the laws of the universe, which is the force that gave origin to this person that walks in front of you. That meditation, as you incorporate it into your own body, you are also, just like me, an expression of the energy of the universe. Let's bring it to the fact that everything we have, from this chair to this building to everything around us, was first thought, then was expressed, articulated, and then it was given and absorbed by those who then materially built the chair. But it went through that sequence. The world of today, we built it in that way. We imagined it, we built it, we expressed it, and then we built it. Engineers and architects and everybody that you know. And so, exactly in the same way, we can right now imagine that world that we want, articulate it as we wish it to be, and then we will go and either ourselves or others will build it. And I'll show you how we are materializing that every day in our lives as a way to live with purpose. So as we do that, raise your sage above your head so that it may receive the energy of the universe in it, where you come from. blow into it your intentions for this better world, this world that we want to build from here forward, so that you may have the clarity of mind that will give clarity to your words, so that the instructions may be given properly. And so that we may come to the center of power and make this energy concentrate, give us the force, give us the foresight, and build the relationships that can make that world possible, materially real. And then bring your sage, and you will place it in this container. You walk over and bring your sage, and you put it in this container. Kind of a reverse communion.
I was just thinking it's the reverse communion.
Thank you. So may the power of all of your minds, of all of your intentions, be brought together so that a community can be formed, so that those intentions will turn into strength in your bodies and your minds and your spirits, so that you will find no fear, you will feel no fear. And when you do, you will know that it's just the body doing that. You don't have to have fear. And as we do that, we will send this away into the universe so that it will bring the same hope and the same illumination to everybody who may come in contact with it. For energy cannot be created, it cannot be destroyed, it can only be transformed. This transformation of your thoughts and your feelings, your intellect, your intentions, through a sacred process of burning with a sacred element, the sage, may now go and bring it to everyone out there so that they may also hear you, and as they do, understand that we must not and we don't have a reason to be afraid. It may hurt, but you don't have to be afraid. And with that meditation as in the starting point, I wanted to read you some poems, and I will go into some more technical things later. But I wanted to start with that because often we tend to forget who we truly are. And when we get lost and don't understand who we truly are, it's very easy to be convinced of one or another things, politics and so on and so forth. When we are centered and we understand who we are inoculated against that kind of mental, spiritual, and physical manipulation. That's why ancestral systems have been the guide for tens, almost hundreds of thousands of years. They have been the guide for communities across the world who, despite the aggressiveness and brutality of colonization, continue to be healthy mentally, physically, and spiritually. That is the foundation of true health. And good food, good friends, good parties. Just saying, I mean, we're at college campus after all. Not everything has to be 100% serious. This story is about cannibals. And somehow, it actually relates to today. On a fateful day in the northern country, some humans who had previously been content with eating the fish from the rivers and lakes forgot the teachings the Anishinaabe had brought from their homeland in the east. They neglected the benevolent acts of the winter spirits that had come to earth to save it. They disregarded the 7 teachings passed down by their ancestors from the Dawn land. Succumbing to evil ways, they found that the fish in the water could no longer satisfy their unending hunger. From that day forward, only the taste of human flesh could satiate them, leading them to become cannibals. Their spirit of greed and destruction spread to others, driving them to commit unspeakable acts. Many who were infected ended up killing and eating their own families. Ataya, these humans began to resemble the winter spirits of a long time past. Not only did they look like these winter spirits, but they genuinely evolved into a new race of winter spirits. Their hearts turned to ice, I-C-E, capital. During the brutal winter, these merciless ice cannibals brought trauma and death to our communities. This was written many hundreds of years ago, just so you know. They were never satisfied after consuming another human being. They not only killed our people, but also made a habit of tearing apart children, elders, and women, scattering their body parts as they moved on. They did this to instill fear and terror in the hearts and minds of the Anishinaabe, knowing that the place called Waakwi, the land behind the stars where our ancestors reside, cannot be entered without all the body parts intact. It was widely recognized that from the ice cannibals' perspective, they weren't merely consuming humans. In their view, when devouring human flesh and bones, they were actually consuming the clans of their victims. This represented the greatest threat imaginable to the Anishinaabe, as consuming their clans would both literally and metaphorically result in this disintegration of the nation's social culture. Consequently, the people as a whole would inevitably face extinction. Betag, the parents and grandparents warned their children and grandchildren, Wendigo, be cautious. Watch out for the ice cannibal. Always keep an eye out for him. Check behind you when you walk alone. As a result, the ice cannibals became the most significant threat to our people. Had faced since ancient times. Fear and terror filled the daily lives of the people, and they had completely lost hope. One day, a hunter named Migis, or Shell, who lived alone on the northern shore of a lake called Dimigami, heard about a frightened tribe of men who had traveled south, wreaking havoc in a town named, I can't pronounce it, terrorizing the inhabitants and consuming human flesh. Guided by the Makwa, the bear, his guardian spirit, in a dream he learned how to create medicine, maskiki, to gain the strength to defeat the ice cannibals. He transformed into a Misavi, a giant, and instead of heading south to Mishibini, Odenang, he tracked down their Ogima, their chief, on the shore of a large northern bay named, and again, very complicated names, and I don't want to mispronounce them, and kill him with a single powerful blow of his war club. Hua. Upon learning of their chief's death, the bloodthirsty tribe fled Mishibini Odenanga in panic and never returned. Following the ice chief's defeat, the people, the men, women, and children who had fallen victims to this tribe were brought back to life. Yet, regrettably, this slain chief himself transformed into an incorporeal entity, a malevolent spirit. This spirit continues to exist within every human being, occasionally lying dormant, but at other times very much alive. Even though Migis was able to defeat the chief and the ice cannibals and banish the rest of his deadly tribe to a distant land filled with caves and marshes, their spirit still lingers among us. Their presence is still very much felt. The elders who are still with us recognize that the desire for human flesh, which dates back to the ice ages, will endure as long as humanity exists. After Miki's courageous deed, the tales of the ice cannibals called Windigog in our language act as cautionary narratives highlighting the perils of self-destruction, greed, and selfishness. These stories emphasize the significance of community spirit and the need to uphold a strong sense of responsibility to the collective. In moments of sorrow and uncertainty like this, we must rely on each other, seeking healing and inclusion through reflection and ceremony. The resilience of our indigenous communities is crucial, especially right now. When Hopi elders speak, this is one of their messages. You have been telling the people that it is the 11th hour. Now I must go back and tell the people that it is the hour, and there are things to be considered. Where are you living? What are you doing? What are your relationships? Are you in right relations? Where is your water? Know your garden. It is time to speak the truth. Create your community. Be good to each other. And do not look outside yourself for the leader. Then he clasped his hands together, smiled, and said, "This could be a good time. There is a river flowing, now very fast. It is so great and swift that there are those who will be afraid. They will try to hold on to the shore. They will feel they are torn apart and will suffer greatly. No, the river has its destination." The elders say, "We must let go of the shore, push off into the middle of the river, keep our eyes open and our heads above water. And I say, see who is in there with you and celebrate. At this time in history, we are to take nothing personally, least of all ourselves. For the moment that we do, our spiritual growth and journey comes to a halt. The time for the lone wolf is over. Gather yourselves. Banish the world struggle from your attitude and your vocabulary. All that we do must be done in a sacred manner and in celebration. We are the ones we have been waiting for." This is from the Hopi in Arizona, from the Orivi. This is Maria Sabina, from a healer and poet in Mexico. "Heal yourself with the light of the sun and the rays of the moon, with the sound of the river and the waterfall, with the swaying of the sea and the fluttering of birds. Heal yourself with mint, neem, and eucalyptus. Sweeten your lavender, rosemary, and chamomile. Hug yourself with the cocoa bean and hint of cinnamon. Put love in tea instead of sugar and drink it looking at the stars. Heal yourself with the kisses that the wind gives you and the hugs of the rain. Stand strong with the bare feet on the ground and with everything that comes from it. Be smarter every day by listening to your intuition, looking at the world with your forehead. Jump, dance, sing so that you live happier. Heal yourself with beautiful love and always remember, you are the medicine." We have asked for the blessing of our ancestors, and we have received it today. Life also doesn't warn us when it is about to turn a moment into a memory. It moves quietly, gently, slipping past while we are busy planning, rushing, or assuming there will always be more time. And then one day we look back and realize how much of it passed through our hands unnoticed. Everything we love is temporary, not in a cruel way, but in a sacred one. Places that once felt like home will one day exist only in photographs. Ordinary routines will soften into nostalgia. The simple joys we barely pause to notice will become the ones we miss the most. There will be a final sunrise your eyes will greet, a last time you taste something familiar and sweet, a final breath of a flower in bloom. There will be a last time you walk into a room that once held your whole world, a last time you feel the weight of a beloved pet resting against you, a last time you hear a voice that once felt permanent. Sometimes we sense the ending and hold on tighter. We linger, we savor, but more often we don't realize the significance of the moment until it has already slipped away, never to be lived again, only remembered. So we gently awake Treasure that in front of you now. Love it fiercely without postponement. Appreciate it fully without distraction. Then, when time turns those moments into memories, you will know you didn't rush past them. You lived them completely and without regret. This is from Divine Souls. And then we transition into a new space tonight with this prophecy from the Hopi. When the earth is ravaged and the animals are dying, a new tribe of people shall come unto the earth from many colors, creeds, and classes, and who by their action and deeds shall make the earth green again. They shall be known as the warriors of the rainbow. Now let's just make sure that if you Google that, you're going to get a lot of really bad stuff. There's a lot of things that groups that call themselves the warriors of the rainbow, and not exactly in alignment with the prophecy, but this existed before any of that happened, just so you know. The true warriors of the rainbow are the ancient warriors, the ones who protect peace, the children, the elder, the life around them. That's the true warrior, not some of that stuff that is showing up. And we will turn the earth again. And the foundation of this reshaping of our living and the meaning of living is through systems change. And so this meditation, for me, is a daily routine, is critical, is a morning thing that we are invited all to do, to envision what the day is going to be like and to promise that it will be a day of peace. Like the monks, if you want to take the last line in the Walk for Peace and paste it somewhere, so that may all living things and all creatures on earth have peace and live well. And that centering every day becomes no different than indoctrination that a lot of people go through to become soldiers and to become a lot of these things that we see out in the street. And just the same way, we can turn that and awaken the indigenous self that is just sitting there waiting to go out and enlighten how we go about life. And that's what we have done as we study this process of living here in this country. So switching into this new space, I'm an immigrant. I came from the Mayan territories of Guatemala. I had my own traditions. This is a Mayan-made incense burner, yet we are burning sage on it. These are corn and soy and black beans that come from my ancestral lands. I grow them in Minnesota every year. These are from a few harvests ago, and I have the seeds coming up for planting this spring. This is a pouch for ceremonial purposes. It holds offerings that we do when we are about to have a prayer or visiting or entering a new space. This is my personal spiritual grounding. It contains all pieces of myself in this space so that I may use it to remember who I am and what my true identity is. And as we go through this is my drum, my ceremonial drum that I brought from the Arizona desert after a couple of weeks there with my youngest son. And this is the symbol of our ancestral organizing systems, which leads the work that we now do in food and agriculture. All of this comes from a deep understanding of ancestral ways of thinking, of living, of relating, of knowing, which through what we just did here, we're able to awaken this other vast amount of intellect that is hidden to us. I read those stories because they are not my own. I credited the authors, but they speak to me the same way I spoke to you earlier. From the heart, no script, no need. Why? Because it's knowledge we carry with us. All you have to do is relax the mind, the body, and the spirit, and it flows just naturally. That is what we call the indigenous intellect. Others call it traditional ecological knowledge. Others call it all kinds of other things. But it is something that we all have because we are all indigenous. We are all born with an innate intelligence That innate intelligence, nothing against ecologists, but is normally attenuated or pushed down through a process. We call it education, but in reality, it's a mix of transferring data and instructions and domestication to teach us how to react and how to behave. That part is important to reject. The indigenous intellect is not possible to domesticate, but you can inform it with science, technology, biophysics, and chemistry, and all of that. And so as we did that, what we figured out was we needed an entry point into the food and agriculture system. As an immigrant, I didn't have land, I didn't have markets, I didn't speak the language, I didn't understand the systems, I didn't understand commerce, none of those things. So I had to start from zero, literally a blank state. And that to me was more important because then I could go down and bring up the ancestral ability to do these things right from the start as opposed to copying something that was already being done wrong. Back in 2006, we said, we're going to do this work because it is evident and scientifically verifiable that the way the current system was structured was never intended to nourish people, bodies, minds, or spirits. It was intended to use the fact that we have to eat every day as a way to extract the maximize the extraction of the wealth of the land and the wealth of the people. That's what it was meant to be. That's why food has degenerated in nutrition, and we have become sick as a result of what we eat, because it was never intended to make you feel better. It was intended to make money out of the fact that we eat. And so we knew that with that kind of principle, that kind of set of principles in the design of a system, it is bound to eventually go down. And we had seen the peak, and we had seen the decline, and we had seen people getting sick and looking for medicine and looking for ways. And the first thing they found out was that their diet was wrong, and their way of living was wrong. And that's what was making them sick. And so we figured if we could bring all of this spirituality and combine it with technology, intellect, and knowledge and science, we could potentially come up with something that was more comprehensive and more durable, more resilient, and better. And so we said, we're going to give it a good try. We're going to give it everything. We're going to make it a way of life to come up with a system like this. And we're going to start with a mighty chicken. And the reason we started with chicken is because I said before, we're an expression of the energy of the universe. The earth itself has all the elements we have in our bodies. We're even proportionally very similar to the earth and the elements. And so is every other living creature on the planet. But at the same time, everything is an expression of energy, from the carrots to the chickens to the eggs, everything. When you break it down, all the way down in the lab, you will have energy left. And from that perspective, then, everything we see that we put on the plate then is energy. It's an expression of that energy assembled in such a sophisticated way, just like ourselves. If that is the case, which is now, again, scientifically verifiable, you can take a sample of your skin to the lab and a sample of the soil, you will find that this is true. And so, if that is true, then what would our system of agriculture need to look like? Well, as a system that oversees and stores the process by which energy is transformed from non-edible forms of expressions to us to expressions that are edible to us. That's what we call carrots and mangoes and oranges and all of that, right? And so, from that perspective, there's three places where energy is transformed at a mass scale on the planet. Photosynthesis. In the middle is the animals that eat the outputs of photosynthesis. We are part of that animal kingdom. We eat some of those outputs, apples, carrots. I mean, those are photosynthetic outputs. And then below that is the mass scale soil ecosystem that uses the leftovers, pee and poop, literally, to feed this mass scale ecosystem that then churns and returns and then optimizes photosynthesis and outputs. And again, the cycle goes. It's a cycle of energy. So from that perspective, we knew that the animal, the livestock, is the place into the land. Photosynthesis is very effective, but only from a biophysical and chemical perspective, not mechanically. Very good at putting that energy together, photons and water and nutrients and minerals and all of that comes together, and it comes leaves and apples and all these things. But that energy, if you take it and put it into the soil directly, It will take up to a year, roughly, to become molecularly broken apart for microorganisms to process it and turn it into nutrients that a plant can use to make more photosynthesis. Yet, if you put a livestock in the middle, within minutes, it can be chewed up, broken down to a certain new level of structure. From there, it goes into your stomach, and it gets broken down further by acids, biophysical and chemical processes. And then through the movement in the intestine, eventually, those nutrients that we need are extracted, and the others are put through. All of that is happening within 24 hours. Another 24 hours after that, it starts to move into the ecosystem, if that's how we did it, and we don't interfere with that process. And then within another 72 hours, it's being again put into, some of it is already being put in through the cycle through photosynthesis again. Livestock then becomes the most effective place where energy is transformed. And so that's why we needed to find a livestock that gave us the triple bottom line, which is the economics. Chickens do that globally, no cultural resistance, most consume, most healthy, along with fish, animal proteins. One, so ecologically sound. It's very hard to destroy an ecology with chickens. Very easy to do with cows and pigs. You got to be a really stupid farmer to destroy an ecology with chickens. And short life cycle, which means economically very, very attractive. Ecologically very easy because they are jungle fowl, so you just got to build that jungle with whatever resources you got locally. And socially, again, very compatible with almost everybody on the planet because we don't have cultural barriers and all of that. Okay, so the chicken chose us. And we said, all right, now we got the livestock, how are we going to go about designing a system? And so the first, build a jungle-like habitat. We use hazelnuts, which are native to this ecology. Hazelnuts, elderberries, maples, oaks, basswood, and so on. That was easy. They need an understory. Hazelnuts and elderberries are a great understory. That's their habitat. And oaks and other trees are the overstory. So there you have it. Pretty straightforward. We asked the hazelnuts what to do. In fact, it's a long story, but if you do dream priming ever, dreams are a very effective way how our mind reorganizes information and trauma and stress and all of that. That's why we got nightmares and so on and so forth. But we also can access knowledge that we can't access when we are awake. We can connect to things that we can't do when we are awake. This is ancient stuff. I'm not making it up here. And so, anyway, in one of those dreams, I actually was asked to go up to Mille Lacs and ask the chief in that area about hazelnuts. And I didn't know at that point that they were native. And so in preparation for that, I started reading, stumbled into Lewis and Clark's diaries, and I read that they were using hazelnuts the same way the Mayans used cocoa beans and the way the Mesopotamians used barley as a currency. And so it was definitely ancient and important and all of those things. And so I went in. I could tell you so much more about the phenology and genetics of hazelnuts. We're not going to there. But the point is, I went in there, and the first thing I saw was this tree that somewhere a long time ago, if you look at it, it tells you a very fascinating story. This is not written in books. You can't find this on the internet even. This tree developed a physiognomical structure very much in alignment with the fears and needs of chickens. The chicken doesn't like be exposed to the sun. This tree can develop a 100% canopy. The chicken needs to go under something if a hawk comes around. Hawks can't land on the hazelnut. The native Corylus americana, not the Corylus cornuta, which is the European version, which is actually a tree. That would be different. But this one doesn't. This one has twigs and produces these clumps of twigs. And they don't grow past like 1.5 inches or 2 maximum. And so when you see all of that, it is very clear that some time ago, the chickens and the hawks and the oaks and the cotton trees and the hazelnuts and the elderberries came together to deal with the dilemma of the chicken. Who's going to protect the chicken? How is the chicken going to be in harmony and in balance with everything else? And so the maples said, okay, we are just going to grow thick canopies and straight up branches so that the hawks can't perch on us. And the owls can't see at night, and they can find the chickens. The hazelnut said, well, you know what, in order to produce nuts, which need a lot of nitrogen, I need the chickens to not process their food very well so that they will put more nitrogen. And so, and if you do that, we'll give you shelter and you will give you protection and all of that. And so, because also after the chickens get scared in the field by a hawk, they run under the tree, and the first thing they do after they relax is poop. And you will see that the actual extraction of nitrogen of the hazelnut from the ground is almost equivalent to the amount of chicken poop that they can accumulate under there. They harvest over 80% of their energy from the first 8 to 12 inches of soil, which means they're actually an inverted umbrella to capture the chicken manure. And it is the chicken manure because other manures don't deliver the nutrients that the hazelnut needs in order to produce nuts. When we put the hazelnuts when we put the chickens under the hazelnuts, we notice a twice increment, so a 100% increase in the productivity of the hazelnuts. And it went from 35% of empty nuts that never filled because the tree didn't have enough energy to less than 5%, meaning 30% increase in fill and almost twice as many hazelnuts. That was the agreement. We simply listened. We simply asked. And the tree told us all of this just by the way it looks at you. You can see it looking at you, right? It's amazing. It's beautiful. And it's knowledge we already have. We simply have to open up the door so that it flows. That was not written in books. It was simply acquired. And now it can be verified. And scientists are verifying, and they are just repeating exactly what I just said. And the chickens are happy under that canopy. While the hazelnuts grow, because they take up to 7 years, we put sunflowers and corn and get other kinds of seeds, but give them the same sense of protection. Meanwhile, out of that, we figured we can design whole farms. And so we started designing whole farms. And then we started testing all kinds of different breeds of chickens. And we let them outside. 100% of their adult life, they spend it outside. And we train them on how to do this. It takes 3 days to train the chickens when they first start to go outside at 4 weeks. And then these hazelnuts, you see how close they are to the barn? The chickens weed and fertilize and maintain that hazelnut exactly as it wants to. Happy chickens has happy hazelnuts. Very upset hawks, for sure. This same flock, you can see it here 70 days later. Full-grown chickens, 6.5-pound chickens. These are hunks of meat walking around. And yet, they don't know that they can't jump or any of that. They still behave in the same way as when they were teenagers. I mean, you can see they are heavier, but their minds know that, but their bodies don't. Because this is what they do every day. Until the last bad day. Every day, this is what the farms looks like. But then, we are not producers of chickens either. We are stewards of energy transformation. That's the function of the farmer. And so, that energy, the poop and all of the other materials that come with it, the hazelnuts, the husks, the branches, the wood chips, we turn that into bedding at a large scale to produce squash, over 250 different vegetables and tomatoes and ancestral corn that is right here. The ancestral beans, black beans from our homeland also. The fruits and the garlic and so on. Now we're just flowing energy. We're not bringing anything extra, just the feed that went into the chicken. And then it just keeps running, running, and running. So we took this farm, this land, 63 acres, mapped out its ecology, water flows, forest, all of the species, the research what we used to live there, and you tell me when we're getting close to the end so that we brought our Mayan spiritual leaders and Lakota leaders, and we asked permission to live in this place and to be welcomed by the ancestors of that specific place, and this became our sacred mound. There has been over 500 people who have come here to pray and to leave their sage and their prayers and their thoughts so that we may continue to enrich our intellect when we go into these spaces. We then mapped out, according to the characteristics of the land, what we wanted to do, where, and so on, including where we're going to put the house and the pump. There was only land when we started. Once we had it mapped out, we had other help to come in, and then somebody took that and turned it into an actual accurate, less than 6 inches, so that it would be done the best we could give to this land. And as we did that, we created a plan for deployment because it was a very large project. Meanwhile, we investigated what would grow there naturally, oaks and hickory. And this is not from here, but honey locust is a very important agroforestry silvopasture system, plant. So we may bring those in. We haven't done that yet, but we had identified them. This is native basswood, and of course the hazelnuts and the elderberries. And we established the systems to do what is called alley cropping, meaning you put trees and then in the alleys you start planting your annuals and so on and so forth. And we brought scientists from Mankato State University, from Freshwater, Minnesota, from Carleton College. And if you want to participate, bring your scientists too. We have plenty of things to be monitored and documented and all of that. And we were able to get resources to start tracking carbon and all kinds of other ecological services that we can deliver as we grow more and more chicken as well. Now, the first thing we did was reestablish the water systems, broke the tile that had been installed underground to drain it so that people could plant corn and soybeans. Most of the 400 million acres in the Midwest that are cultivated today are actually drained artificially. That's why the rivers overflow and all of that, right? So because the water just rushes right down those tiles, those pipes, 4-inch plastic pipes that are buried underground 3 feet deep. So we started breaking those and accumulating the water again and restoring that capillary water system and so on. We also planted 8,200 hazelnuts. Since we already knew this story, we figured let's go at it all the way. We put a road, selected the house site, all of that, and you can see the contour lines already. Once we had done that, we put water lines, and we built chicken coops, and we put a pond on the lower part of the land so we could collect all the water and be able to take water samples and see if there was water runoff, viruses, or anything else. Now with the COVID technology, we can actually have permanent monitoring systems with Wi-Fi transmission, so we can actually see whether there is a HPAY, influenza viruses or any of that, and so on, and also nutrients that may be running off, so we can make corrections and put new biological filters and so on and so forth. And we had the first year of production. We put all that infrastructure. You see that barn on the left is our heated brooder where chickens arrive. When they come, this is when you enter the farm. This is an invitation for you to come and visit. I invite all the professors to come and have field days with us. We do that every year for many groups. This is 2 years ago when we were already building the house, fall of 2024. This house, we finished building it in the spring of 2025, and we moved in there in April last year. After 4 years since we had purchased the land, plus the barns and everything, we are now raising 18,200 broilers under that system every year on that space. So that's part of the story here. Starting from this view, of course, you know what it looks like in the winter. And you also know that if you want to build in the winter like right now, you got to be a hardy dude or you're going to freeze to death out there. So it's good to know that as a Guatemalan, I can do these things and I can rub it in my friends' faces in Guatemala when I tell them that the lakes actually freeze. I tell them the lakes freeze and they look at me like I'm some sort of coming out of a silent place. We built the coops. They look beautiful. And they also produce a lot of chickens for us. This is one time when we had one of those groups. This is a group of investors that came out, busload of them. And we host events like this. If you really want to come and spend a day out there, it takes way more than a day for us to explain everything we're doing. But at least you can see things and absorb most of it. You can see the patches of corn and sunflowers that we do so the chickens have protection. Technically, this is what the hawk sees. And you can see them there, but if it was a hawk, they would just run right under the trees. That was in the fall. This is this spring. You can see the house is finished. That pond right there is now overgrown with those willows, and we got so many birds. There are even birds living in there right now because they didn't have to leave anymore. There's plenty of food because we leave corn and sunflowers out in the field so that they can have food too. Even the squirrels are stealing corn from close to the house on that right there. So this is what it looks like in the middle of the summer. I mean, in the beginning of the spring. As summer goes in, it gets thicker and most beautiful. There's a line of chickens. You see the white chickens in there? A Luna moth. You know that this is a cousin of the gypsy moth. And because the gypsy moth kills all these oak trees and other trees, they started spraying them. But spraying the gypsy moth means the Luna moth was going extinct. You put native species like hazelnuts, and other native species just volunteered their way in. I don't know where this Luna moth came, but after this one, we found 3 more. I mean, some people say, whoa, you're bringing pests in there. Well, they were here before we were here. What's the problem? Right? Imagine if we could have the hazelnut intelligence in one of these people who don't think that brown people should live in this country, even though we were here before the white people. Luna moth was here before. If we can understand that, why is it that we have so much problem intellectually understanding other things that should be way simpler than that? Just a little bit of a meditating point there. Black beans, they come from my ancestors in Guatemala, same as the corn. You see their samples right here with us. This is literally a place, we don't use equipment. We don't use machines on this, on growing these seeds. The stuff we eat, we don't use machines on. And the reason is because literally, as we go around, you shed your skin, you shed your DNA, and it goes into the field, and it gets absorbed by the corn. It's just natural that it will do that. And so I am literally, when I'm walking in this corn and the beans, I'm walking among my ancestors' DNA, my ancestors' energy is right there. And so it is a great privilege to be able to have them along with us for the ride and then pass it on. And then my skin and my cells that were shed in there will become part of the next crop and so on and so forth. And then other generations will be able to interpret that too. Now you think like, what's the point of doing all of that? Is the point of identity. When we lose that and we lose that connection, we lose way more than just our ability to access our indigenous intellect. Because we are limited now to that 1 or 2 or 3% of intellectual capacity that the colonizer mind needs in order to take over the world. The other 95% of our capacity is wasted because we choose that 1 or 2%. And that, to me, is just a simple waste of human beings. And what's our purpose to live if it is not the optimization of our expression as human beings? Why would we deny the indigenous side of us their place in our existence, which can make us better humans to begin with, right? So that's why we do this. When we don't do these things and these practices and rituals and stuff, we forget those truths and that true identity. And of course, garlic grows really well with chicken manure. And again, this is just another, this is down from the ground. You can see this is another different breed of chickens. And this is not sunflowers, this is corn on the right, sunflowers on the left. This is how they eat outdoors all day, since they are 4 weeks until they are 70 days. This is the way the water flows on the farm. So you can see the pond is in the lower place where we can collect all samples of everything going on that farm. These are 12 acres. This is Beth Fisher, the scientist from Mankato State University. And on the left,
I make a joke and
can't
it's
see
not
him, but
funny, but you're doing healthy right now.
used to be the
I
head
would say,
soil
you go
scientist from
down.
Minnesota.
And I have to get
They're just measuring electroconductivity, it's called. Don't ask me what that means. Oh, I can tell you what that means. But. So out of that, what we did was, okay, so we're doing all of these things right, but what about after the farm? Where does this product go? Who gets to own it? The farm isn't where we get the best price for things. That's not where we capture the most value. The most value is captured when somebody buys our chicken at the store somewhere else. So we decided, well, we're going to build a whole system. A system of entities and a system of infrastructure and so on. So we built a nonprofit. It's called the Regenerative Agriculture Alliance. And then we bought a meat packing facility out of Iowa, and we set up our own processing facility for our chickens. And then since we had that, so why not set up a brand? So we set up a brand, and we thought, well, a friend of ours thought, what's the natural name for our chicken? Tree-range chicken, right? Chickens under the trees, easy. So now we have a brand. It's called Tree-range chicken. And one of my asks for you, if you want to get active on something, make sure that that cafeteria down there doesn't serve anything else but tree-range chicken. Ted is his name. All we need is the cafeteria managers to call him and for you guys to say, no, I don't want any other chicken than tree-range chicken. Go and tell your friends and tell everyone, the whole college, and then very soon we'll have our chicken here, chickens that were growing under those trees. And so we started building this ecosystem of enterprises. We mapped out 14 enterprise sectors that we could engage, from transportation, processing, value added, distribution, grain production, grain processing, grain mixing, grain delivery, all of that, 14 enterprise sectors that now form what we call the Poultry Center Regenerative Agroforestry System. That not only is rewarding, it greens the earth again, but also I can get up every morning and I live it with purpose. I have not had a boring day. When my wife and I met, and I was just telling you, Professor, that I said to her, when I took her way back in the northern rainforest to visit my family, I said, just bring clothing and stuff, because there's mosquitoes galore and spiders and scorpions and stuff. And our house is pretty simple. It doesn't even have full walls, so they roam around quite a bit. And so anyway, I was wondering if she was going to want to marry me after that experience. And that was actually the reason we ended up getting married. I think what she realized was real, unchecked, factual living to the maximum is worth billions to other people. And yet they can't experience the full expression of who they are as human beings. Money can't do that. Only the sense that you get up in the morning and you are going and doing everything you want to do, and it is the optimal expression of your intellect and your physical and mental capacity, that is worth living for. If it makes money, it's so secondary. So I told her, I said, listen, I'm not really a money guy. I'm not interested in making money. That's like, it's so down the line for me. But I do tell you, you are not going to have a single boring day, because we're going to live it to the max. And that's what we do. And what we do as a job is part of who we are as a person. We don't go to a job that we hate. We get up in the morning, and I can't wait for the morning to arrive, because I think that if God ever made a mistake in the design of the universe and in the design of human beings, the one mistake he made was that we need to sleep. Because it would be great not to have to sleep and just do this 24/7. That's how exciting it is. And so I wish that for all of you, that your days will be exciting, that you will get up in the morning and be desperately pushing the covers because your day is so exciting that you can't wait to get up and get going with it. And that is how we change systems. That allows us to have the force, the energy, the capacity to resist oppression and all kinds of things, because it's so worth doing it. Because it's our lives at stake. And our lives are worth so much. And so that's what we are building. Changing systems is about changing it from that perspective. So we can imagine what we want, articulate it, like as I've done for you, or ask the chickens in the trees, and they can help you. And then bring it out into the engineering process, and bring the biophysical and chemical agronomics and so on that would allow us to optimize that process. And then build the business ecosystem. So we bought that place in in Stacyville. Then we rent a very large freezer in Albert Lee. And then we have built 12 farms around this region. We are training new farms now. And we have raised just around 50,000 chickens every year now. And we're about to double, and then we are about to start doubling that every year. Our goal is to get to that tipping point of 3% or so, which is around 300 million chickens. And at that point, the whole country will be tree-ranged. Why not? We did this from zero, and we are now at about $36 million of property, plant, and equipment. And we have deployed operations in Canada, in British Columbia, also in Mexico, excuse me, in Guatemala and the Pine Ridge Reservation. We're working with folks in Kansas. We're about to visit folks in Indiana. And I'm about to head to Ecuador at the end of February to train another team there as part of a government program. And we are developing our own region right here. So why not do more if we can, right? And with that, I hope your night was enjoyable. And I hope it changed something, some new synapses. And that you will go on and not think about the body or any of this stuff. Let's prepare to defend it, of course. And don't give up, but don't be afraid. The ice monster will also pass. Thank you.
Time for questions. Anyone have questions for Reggie about his chicken revolution?
I like it that chickens are also revolutionary. Never thought of chickens that way, but I'm okay with that.
What breeds of chickens do you have?
They are called Pioneer, one of them. Those are the brownish white mix. The males are all white, and the females are all brown. It's called color sexing. Not all the breeds can be separated, males and females, by color, but that one does. Another one is called Freedom Ranger. There's a Mennonite family out of Pennsylvania that grows that breed, and we buy it from them. Now, I won't give you course credits, but you can have guaranteed life credits today. Yes.
What's your answer to the animal activists that might say that you are taking the life of an entity?
Well, the thing is, we have evolved as part of a food, not chain, but web. So what right do I have to question our choices of eating other animals? If I want to choose, if I'll question that, I'll question the tiger for eating the antelope too. And I would have to question the bear for eating the fish. And I will have to question, and now I have a list that goes forever, because that is simply a web of life. It was designed that way. And as long as we are at peace spiritually with the exchange of energy, and we do it with respect, and we do it with honor, I don't find any problem with living that way. It is when we start abusing and we start taking and become the ice monster, that when it becomes a problem. And I'm sure a lot of people feel guilty about doing that. And that is good. We need to feel guilty. I'm not saying we should eat chickens. I didn't invent the art of eating chicken or of butchering them or any of that. But there is a tremendous amount of demand for them. And if we know better how to reconcile that discrepancy, especially the spiritual discrepancy, which makes people feel guilty about their choices in life, then we can provide a solution by bringing back the circle of life. And those who don't want to be part of the actual abuse of animals and all of that don't have to anymore, because those chickens are pretty happy chickens. I don't know, I never asked them. That's one step I never took, because I don't understand chicken talk. But I know that in our own way of being and relating, I reconcile with the fact that everything is food. In fact, if we have a problem with eating chicken, we should have a problem with it being eaten by worms when we are gone. It gets to that level of simplicity to me.
Anybody else? Well, maybe we'll check out his farm sometime. Head down to Rochester?
Northfield.
Northfield.
It's 1 hour closer. It's just 2 hours.
All right. Let's give our guest an applause. Thank you all for coming.